To capitalize or not to capitalize? That is the question. Hi everyone, Leo Notenboom here for askleo.com. Still not an AI. Here's the question. Are email addresses case sensitive? How about URLs, file names, passwords? What we've got here is a can of worms. It really is that complicated. What we're talking about, of course, is whether uppercase letters are treated differently from lowercase counterparts. Is all uppercase Leo the same as all lowercase Leo? Well, the answers to the four questions above are no, mostly no, it depends, and always. As I say, it's enough to drive you crazy. So let's start with email addresses. Email addresses are not case sensitive. What that means is that all four of these examples of different capitalization for Leo at askleo.com, they're all the same email address. It doesn't matter. Now, the convention is to use all lowercase. So Leo at askleo.com, all lowercase, would be what you normally see. Lowercase is actually such a strong convention for email addresses that using uppercase will likely get you funny looks. I know my staff and I do a double take whenever we see it on incoming questions. URLs. Mostly no. URLs, web addresses beginning with HTTP or HTTPS, are mostly case insensitive. These four examples of askleo.com, they're all the same website. Now, once again, the convention is to always use all lowercase. So https://askleo.com, all lowercase, is what you would normally see. Since URLs are actually interpreted in many places, like in word processors that automatically turn them into hyperlinks, interpreting mixed case URLs can be a little dicey. So, once again, my recommendation is to always stick with all lowercase. Except, and this is where that mostly part comes into play, we can make no assumptions about anything that follows a question mark in a URL. These three examples, where I've added something equals something, differing in case, they could all be the same thing. They could be two different things. They could be three different things. In general, we just don't have a way of knowing. So if you're ever in a situation where you're typing something like this in, make sure to type the part after the question mark in exactly the same case as you're instructed to. And if you get no instructions, then sure, assume lowercase. File names. It depends. File systems, things like FAT32, NTFS, and others, they're the things that determine whether the capitalization of a file name on disk matters. Historically, file systems that originated in Windows are case insensitive. FAT, FAT32, NTFS, and so on. File systems that originated elsewhere, such as on Apple or Linux devices, are case sensitive. APFS, ext4, and others. But it gets more complicated than that, especially when uploading or downloading files. Since so many, perhaps even most web servers are Linux-based these days, case matters. So if you're called to upload a file, then on these systems, filename.docx and filename.docx with a leading capital F can result in two separate files, even though there's only that one letter difference. Similarly, if in Windows you download lowercase filename.docx and then download the uppercase filename.docx, which looks to be a separate file on the web service you're using, you'll get a warning that you're about to overwrite the first with the second. Windows sees those as the same file name. The first letter differs in case, well, that makes no difference. My very strong recommendation here is to always use all lowercase if you can. It removes the confusion from the equation, no matter what it is you're doing. Now, for a little more confusion, as if we needed it, sometimes third-party tools, like, say, Cryptomator, can act in a case-sensitive way, even when working on Windows native file systems that are not case-sensitive. Fortunately, it's actually an easy thing to test. Create filename.docx, all lowercase, and then try to copy or save filename.docx with some uppercase to the exact same location. If it works and you get two files, then the file system is case sensitive, and yes, they are two different files. If it complains that you're about to overwrite the first with the second, then the file system is not case sensitive. They're being treated as the same file and file name. If it works and you get only a single file, presumably with the contents of the second file, then once again, the file system is not case sensitive. They're being treated as the same file name. The file name at the destination may or may not be updated to match the case of the name you copied in. Passwords, that's an easy one. They're always case sensitive. Anyone who's had the caps lock key stuck while entering a password knows that this is the case, literally. Password and password, with uppercase in it, are two different, and of course very bad, passwords. Now, small tangent here. Because I make my living as a writer these days, and I'm ever so slightly a pedant about these things, I have to talk about written English. Written English is case sensitive. Now, there are many rules about what should be used when, but by and large, capitalization matters. People may still be able to read what you're saying, but capitalization, or lack thereof, or overuse thereof, sends a very subtle, or sometimes not so subtle message about your tone, your education level, and even your intelligence. Now, I know we'd like that not to be the case, again, literally, but it is what it is. Of course, it's also very context dependent. Text messages are definitely more informal and free-form. Written documents? No, not so much. Now, whether email should be stylistically correct is controversial and something that I'm not going to dive into, other than to say that if you want your email to be taken seriously, I recommend you write it seriously. Now, along with upper and lower case, you may have run across the term CamelCase. In this style, the first letter of each word in a string without spaces is capitalized. It kind of sort of gives the word the style of humps on a camel. For example, Corgi picnic photos, where I've capitalized the first letter of each of those three words. In violation of my stick with lowercase for file name suggestion, this is actually a common technique to make multi-word folders and file names easier to read while avoiding spaces in file names. When in doubt, and with the exceptions noted above, it's probably best to just stick with lowercase in email addresses, URLs, file names, and so on. And, of course, please write English properly if you can. For comments, for updates, for links to related topics and more, visit askleo.com/193828. I'm Leo Notenboom, and this is askleo.com. Thanks for watching.